Come, spell weavers, reavers, rogues, and men-at-arms, and answer the call of adventure. Pick up your sword, your axe, your spellbook, your bow, your rulebook, and your dice, and join the forces of good in their eternal fight against vile monsters, conspiring min-maxers, horny bards, and blood-soaked murder hobos. Discover the treasure trove of role-playing games here on Rollin Bones. My name is Ryan Howard, and I shall be your guide. Good evening, Boneheads, and welcome back to Rollin Bones with Ryan Howard, where we are making old school young again. I'm your host, King of the Boneheads, Ryan Howard, and this evening I am once again flying solo, and we're going to be talking a little bit about my plans for Project Skeleton and some of the ideas that I have specifically around classes, skills, professions, that sort of thing. So we are going to get to that here in just a little bit. Before we do, I want to remind everyone to like, share, and subscribe if you enjoy what you were seeing here on Rollin Bones. That is one of the best ways to do it. Also want to remind everyone that you can find me on various social media platforms, including X, Instagram, and YouTube, where I am live right now, except for Instagram. X and Instagram are at Howard_Ryan Gregg. YouTube is Rollin Bones. Twitch is twitch.tv/RollinBonesRyan. And Substack is rollinbones.substack.com. I will have a Substack article up on Friday. The topic will be basically ways to get your players to burn off their coin. And this isn't going to be like money traps or ways to steal from your players. This is going to be basically, how do you go from a party that just pulled a giant pile of loot out of the bottom of a dungeon to using that money in ways that aren't just buying new gear. So it's really going to be kind of an on-ramp into building a small domain and then building that domain into a bigger domain. And there's a lot to discuss around that, because I get the sense when talking to people who don't understand like how to get into that side of things, that nobody has studied the mafia or the government, or really any variety of power, or how power is built or expanded, especially built from seemingly nothing, because power is never built from nothing. It always has a source. And so this is, essentially about building power as a party. So that's going to be interesting. And I think you guys will really get a kick out of that, especially those of you who enjoy that style of play. And those of you who are curious about it, you'll probably find, something to get out of the game, or something new to get out of the game when playing around with these ideas. And at the end of the day, that is just generally what I like to do with my Substack articles. So that's it for the shilling right now. The topic today, as some of you may have guessed or some of you may have heard, we are going to be talking about classes, skills, training. Basically, what am I going to do as far as class or skill-based system for Project Skeleton? What are my thoughts on how to kind of bridge this gap? Let me adjust my lighting here. I feel a little pale, a little washed out. And so that's what we're going to be discussing today. So let's go ahead, and I have brought PowerPoint back because I enjoy PowerPoint. There we go. Nothing's going to ever keep you down. I am continuing the proud tradition of Malachi's song references here, and I don't know. I don't think I'm going to be able to belt out some Joe Esposito tonight, but, that's what we're working with here. As you may have guessed from this little graphic here, training is going to play a big part in my conception of role-playing games and how I'm going to resolve these issues of, leveling up, adventuring, even classes themselves. Like, really, I just have to get into it. So let's go ahead and jump in. Class-based systems. You all are very familiar with this already. This is the standard fantasy RPG. You have classes. What classes are is basically it's basically a package of skills. It is basically, you will be able to do this, this, and this better than anyone else. This is going to be packaged into this little umbrella category, of fighting man, magic user, priest, thief, on down the line. And as you gain experience, you will become better at doing these things. And then, some games, we'll get to 5e in a little bit because 5e is, I think, kind of a unique animal. But some of them do expand on the abilities that you have as you level up. And so it's not just you're doing things that are already established better, but you're also learning new things. So I've already kind of mentioned the pros here. This is the lingua franca that most everyone's familiar with when it comes to fantasy role playing. It's a clean, tight system where, oh, you want to do this, this, and this. This is the class you pick. And then, you'll be able to do this at this level and this at this level. And it also gives players with a clear profession. That's something that I really emphasize very heavily in my conception of classes. And this is why I don't like, for example, the barbarian as a class, because barbarian is not a profession. Barbarian describes a mode of upbringing. And there's multiple different types of barbarian just means foreigner, and so that's why I don't like it as a class. However, it is presented as a class, and I guess technically the profession would be berserker based on the way that everyone shows the barbarian. But I've ranted about that ad nauseum at this point. And that does kind of lead into the cons naturally, because it's oversimplified. To put everything inside this little box and say this is what defines this particular type of character or this particular profession is very limiting. And some people don't like that. A lot of people don't like that, in fact. It's also very rigid. You keep everyone has very well-defined roles, and you break the mold of your class basically at the expense of your party. One of the common criticisms of 5e is that there are certain classes, like, perfect example, the Scout Rogue in 5th edition is a better ranger than a ranger, and that shouldn't be the case, but it is the case. I think that's something they've tried to address in whatever the 1D&D is, whether it's a true 6e or 5.5. It sounds like they've tried to address that, but that game's hot garbage anyway. And so there's not a lot of room for iteration, because when you start iterating on, I'm a fighter, but I also do this, then you start to kind of break into other people's territories. And something that I find interesting, because of how rigid class structures tend to be in role-playing games, you get these weird articles of, make X character from, this book series, or, make this superhero in D&D. There's a whole video series out there about essentially making superheroes in 5e. And most of it boils down to you have to jump into 5 different classes to make these guys work, because at the end of the day, both real people and fictional characters are more complicated than this class structure allows. Uh, let's take, for example, uh, Croker from the Black Company. How would you stat Croker as a player character? On paper, he's a fighter, but the books tell us that he's not actually that good of a warrior. He is the company medic, but he doesn't have any magic powers. He's not a cleric. So, he's a doctor, but not a magical doctor. So he can't be a cleric. And he's not a good fighter. Where do you put him? Or here's an even better example. Conan the Barbarian has had multiple different careers in his time. He has been essentially a Cossack, a thief, a pirate, a kind of a pseudo knight in some stories. A berserker barbarian type. He's had so many different careers in his time that to make a book accurate Conan, you have to like take a dip in pretty much every martial class. King Yellow says he's a second edition fighter with a medicine proficiency, but also he can't really fight. I don't know. It's weird. And so a lot of people wonder, like, how do you create, these book characters who are multifaceted? You've got, a fighter who is well learned, or or the Gray Mouser. You have a thief who dabbled in magic in his early career. Yeah, literature is filled with examples of this kind of character. And, Malachi's alluding to skill system being better than class system. We're going to talk about skill systems here in just a second. In fact, let's go ahead and go over there. Skill systems. Pros. They are more open ecosystems. And what I'm thinking of here is Savage Worlds. In Savage Worlds, like if I pulled my Deadlands books off the shelf, which I could do, but they're also inside a box. So I have to open up a box set. They give you archetypes for if you want to play this type of character. If you want to play a gunslinger, you want to take these skills, because a Savage Worlds character is really just a collection of stats and then the skills that you take. And, you can follow that guide rigidly, or you can, kind of move around freely and create kind of open characters. And so you have this open ecosystem that allows for a lot more customization. You can be that fighter that for some reason is really good at foreign languages, or you can be the wizard who studied the blade when he was younger, and so he has at least intermediate combat abilities as a sword fighter. That kind of stuff. And that makes for characters that are easy to differentiate from each other. Now, the cons here, and why I am not going to go as far as Malachi did and say that skill systems are better than class systems. Skill systems tend to overcomplicate things because they present way too many options. And every game I think about from the perspective of a new player who is just sitting down to read the book. And I ran into this with 5th edition D&D. When I was teaching people to play 5th edition, they would open the book, and I limited it to really just the core 3 books. So like the only class options they had were what was in the core book, and then I think I had Xanathar's Guide as well. Just to give options. I probably should have limited it to just core book, just the PHB. But what I found was there were certain players who were completely overwhelmed by, okay, I have to pick a class. Now I have to pick a subclass. Now I have to pick all of these different skills and so the more options you give players, the more that this kind of balking at just the sheer amount of choices you have to make, you know, comes up. And as an inevitable consequence of a skill system, you are going to have a lot of skills that are either extremely situational or outright useless, especially in adventure play. Um, Someone somewhere is going to say, I really want my character to be like a photographer or a skilled painter or something like that. And so you have the painting skill or the photography skill or the cooking skill or something like that. And then this is more like a 3.5 or fourth edition problem that people run into. I want my player to be or I want my character to be a blacksmith, and so they spend so much time specking into becoming like a master blacksmith that they're essentially a crappy adventuring character, but they're a really good blacksmith. And so at that point you're just like, all right, should I retire? It seems like I'm actually good at this like regular person thing, which is kind of a prerequisite for adventuring, that you not be good at being a regular person. I don't know. And I put here that it encourages build play as well. Malachi disagrees. He says this is something that comes specifically out of 3E and 5E. I agree with him. However, it came out of 3E and 5E because 3E and 5E had the internet with them. 3E came out in 2000. And so, like, internet forums were really kind of at the zenith of their popularity right as 3E was coming. And so, you can take a look at something like classic Deadlands or Palladium or other systems that have skills, and there's not so much of a like build culture around them, but the build culture has come with the internet. And so while I agree with Malachi that it's not just skill systems that create, oh, we have to have these builds, we do have to realize that we now live in the internet age. And you're going to be able to go, if it's not on a forum now, it's on, YouTube or Substack, and I've done this before. You can go into my backlog and see build videos that I've done back when I thought that was something I could do, or something that more people needed to be doing on this platform. I leave them up for posterity to remind myself that you once were as retarded as all these other people. So that's that's there if you want a good laugh. But you have all of these builds that people throw out there, and a lot of them are designed specifically to be like, how much can you break this game? How much can you really make your DM want to like hang his head and burn his books at the end of the session? And we've all engaged with it. One of my friends, the first DM that ran for me, he created a build called the Luck Fucker. That's what he called it. And this was in 5e. So this was a Lightfoot halfling divination wizard that took the lucky feat. And so basically he controlled every roll on the board by the time he was at like 10th level because of what divination wizards can do, and having the lucky feat and all that. So, that's for those of you who are unfamiliar with the problem of a build culture, that's what you can expect from some of your players. And so Rex Teal brings up a good point here. 3 LBBs of OD&D have only 3 classes: fighting man, cleric, and magic user, and they're essentially broad brush. Like there's not even a thief in there. The idea is basically you have this kind of broad category of a martial, a magic user, and then a like spiritual magic user. And any variation of what you want to do can fit within these very wide open boxes. Because it's literally like, if you look at OD&D and how they describe their classes, it's literally fighter fights good. Cleric can cast spells but also turns undead, and magic user uses magic, and that's what you got. Magic user uses magic and can identify things. Cleric can use magic and turns undead and heals people. And so within these very broad canvases, you are able to, essentially construct whatever character you want. So if you are a fighting man, for example, you can be, um, Conan. You can be a swashbuckler like Sinbad. You can be, a knight in plate mail with a lance, that kind of stuff. So, that is one way to approach classes. Um, and then one last system I want to talk about is hybrid systems. And this is where 5e comes in and where 3e comes in. Because you have classes, but in addition to these classes, you have feats, skills, prestige classes. And this is, to Malachi's point, this is really where build culture sets in, because you have classes and then you've got other things that supplement classes where you can like stack bricks on top of them and basically create these monster builds. Or if you don't know the meta, you can create basically a garbage character that's not fit to adventure. A lot of these games create the worst of both worlds, and that's what you see in like 3E, 4E, and 5E. Malachi says that Palladium is good about, having kind of a hybrid system. I have read a little bit of Palladium. I can't speak to that personally. Again, I haven't played Palladium or run it as a game master, so there's that. So that's what we're dealing with currently. Now let's talk about the profession path system. This is the system that I am developing for Project Skeleton. And so character creation, and I'll talk about that. I probably should have done character creation before I did this, but I was just thinking about this, and so I wanted to do this stream. Character creation is going to involve figuring out basically what things are you good at and what things are you bad at, or what things are you good at, what things are you okay at, and what things are you bad at. Then after you roll that and roll your background and all that, you get into character creation, you get into path selection. And so the idea here is that you're going from broad paths that are going to be a lot more reminiscent of 0E, 3LBB, old school classes, and then you're going to funnel into more specific ideas. Some of these paths are going to intersect with each other. Some of them are eventually going to lock themselves off from other paths. And it's just going to be a matter of what happens when you follow this profession path to its logical conclusion. So let's dig into this and find out a little bit about what makes this different from the systems that I laid out. Before we do that, though, we have to talk about the core mechanic that I currently have for this game. This is called the action roll, which is what a lot of games call it. It's not that's not a unique name. So this is your action roll. It consists of 4 types of dice. So every action is going to be a D20 roll. This is the standard attempt to do anything. If you are completely unskilled in something, you will roll an unmodified D20, and the result will be compared against either a static target number or an opposing roll. So if you have never learned how to use a sword and you pick one up and you roll to attack somebody, you will be rolling against their opposing defense roll. Then you have aptitude dice. Aptitudes are what I am using instead of stats. So to pull up my, and I've already talked a little bit about this, but just as a refresher for everyone who has not seen the stream before or doesn't know what I'm playing around with here. Aptitudes are basically your character's natural gift to do things. And so they are divided up into physical, mental, spiritual, and personal. So for physical aptitudes, you have strength, which is how much can they lift, how hard they hit, can you crush a tomato, that kind of stuff. Athleticism, how fast can you run? Climbing, dodging, ranged attacks, how far can you throw a tomato, that kind of stuff. Retracting ranged attacks there because that actually goes in the next one. So athleticism is how fast you can run, acrobatics, climbing, dodging, moving silently. Hand-eye coordination is shooting, so any ranged attack, shooting, lockpicking, pickpocketing, sleight of hand, throwing anything. This is how far you can throw a tomato, is hand-eye coordination. And then vigor. This is how many wounds you can take, resisting poison, resisting disease, how far you can travel before you're fatigued. That all falls under vigor. Under mental, you have knowledge, which is your knowledge of history, religion, lore, your ability to research spells, languages known, etc. Instinct is investigation, observation, pattern recognition, navigation, tracking, on down the line. Ingenuity. This is your ability to do things mechanically, problem solving, creativity, alchemy. Like this is the ability to have the MacGyver montage of opening up your Swiss Army knife and taking a toothpick and chewing gum and some PVC pipe and somehow turning it into an explosive device. That's ingenuity. And then strategy. This is planning, coordinating assets, conducting heists. Basically, this is being able to draw up and execute any kind of scheme or plan. So this is your Patton or your Napoleon ability here is strategy. Under spiritual, you have faith, which is your connection to a deity, the strength of your prayers, that kind of stuff. Sanity, which is coping with psychic trauma, seeing through illusions, dealing with disturbing sights, all that kind of stuff. Mysticism is attunement with magical energies, comprehending spells, casting spells. Mysticism is going to be like what you want everything to be in if you're a spellcaster. Unless you are a cleric, and then you want everything to be in faith. And then willpower, you have morale rolls, morale bonuses to troops that you command, resisting mind control, concentration, that kind of stuff. And then under personal, you have verbal, which is your ability to speak, telling stories, lying, negotiating. Presence, which is your ability to intimidate people, the way that you look. It's your wow factor. It's, presence is being able to walk in a room and immediately have the eyes on you. Magnetism is your ability to convince people one-on-one to like you. So your likability, your charm. It's also going to be your comeliness. So like how physically attractive are you? That all falls under magnetism. And then performance is disguising yourself, and then like singing and pantomime, the bard skills. That's where, that all falls under performance. And so you'll be kind of rolling on that to find out, what you're strong in, what you're weak in, all that stuff. And so that will all be your aptitude dice. And you will have a maximum of 2 aptitude dice to roll in any of those things, which will be correlated to specific actions that you will be performing. And so this represents your natural ability or talent. And then you have training dice, and this is where the profession system comes in. These are skills that you are specifically trained in. You do not have to be particularly good at something to become trained in it if you roll well. We'll get to that in a little bit. But training dice represents any instruction or praxis that you have had in basically equipping yourself to do something, to perform some of these actions. Then you have weakness dice. These are going to max out at 1d6, and this is a debuff to things that you are specifically bad at, because every aptitude array that I have, which is where you will assign your dice, there's going to be one aptitude category that you are specifically bad at. Although there are some where you could be, there's one where you can be bad at everything except for one thing. There's a savant array that I've come up with where all 8 of your dice, all 8 of your d6s for aptitudes go in one category. So you get 2 dice in every single thing there. But then everything else you're just horrible at, and you have 1d6 penalty to attempting that stuff. I think that's an interesting idea to roll with, and we'll see how that plays out once I take it to the table. So you will roll all of these dice, and like I said, you will compare it to either a static target number. We'll get to assigning that in a second, because that's, again, part of the action is understanding what a static target number would be in a particular circumstance, or it's an opposing roll. There's going to be a lot of opposing rolls in this game. Attack and defense is going to be opposing rolls. Hiding and searching are going to be opposing rolls. Lying and seeing through lies, that's going to be opposing rolls. I want there to be a lot of kind of active back and forth and opposed dice rolls in this game, because that way, when players have to actively participate in multiple aspects of the game, I feel like it cuts down on the scrolling, looking at your phone during game time, because the barbarian could be like, I'm going to stack my dice during non-smashy time, but if he has to roll because someone's trying to lie to him to get him to smash someone he doesn't want to smash, that's going to be important later, for him. So that's why I like the opposed dice rolls. I feel like it has to, you have to remain engaged to know, like, where do you actually need to make this roll. And so skill dice. These are dice that are applied, like I said previously, to every skill or action that you could reasonably be considered trained in, given the profession or path that you will be trained into. Tier 1, there's 2 dice for each tier. You will stay in each tier basically for 2 rounds of training, and then you have to go to the next tier and find a new mentor. So tier 1, you're a generalist. You start off with a D4 training dice, and then you go up to a D6. As a specialist, you can go up to a D8 or a D10. As a master, you go up to a D12. It caps off at a D12, and then you go into modifiers. So tier 2 for a master is D12 plus 1. At Grandmaster, you're looking at D12 plus 2 and plus 3. And these will stack with your aptitude dice. So you will always have your aptitude dice and then whatever you're trained in. You will not always be trained in things that you are adept in, depending on which way you go. You can synergize, or you can be a little unusual. Yeah, Malachi's right when he calls this out. This is something that Savage Worlds does very well, and it's something that I have shamelessly stolen from Savage Worlds because Shane, if you're watching this, I love you. So tier 1, generalist. You will have to select a profession path, and because I have elected the path of shamelessly stealing here, uh, you have to roll to successfully train in your given path. So once you have your aptitude array and you know that I'm really good at these things, I am okay at these things, everything else I'm just kind of in, and then there's one thing I'm really bad at. Once you have that, you then pick your class, for lack of a better word. You pick your progression path, and then you have to roll to see if you can take it on, just like in Traveler. So you get 3 rolls. I'll hold it up with this hand so you guys can see. 3 rolls to get into a path. You can spend those 3 rolls however you want. If you really want to be a fighter and nothing else, you can take all 3 of your chances at becoming a warrior, which is the name of the path here. Or you can, if you fail one, you can go, all right, well, I'm going to try this other one. And then if you fail that one, I'm going to try this other one. So however you want to spend those 3 chances to get into a profession, you can do so. If you fail all 3, you died. Your character died in character creation. So there are 2 kinds of paths. Martial, which is combat and skill focused, and then magic, which is magic focused. And to train in any path, at any point, you have to have a mentor. So at tier 1, your mentors are very common. You automatically have access to one once you roll into your tier 1 path. You will say, okay, we're starting in this area of the map. You're starting here, so this is going to be your mentor. This is who taught you how to do everything. This is where you can go to, train for the next level. Once you get to the top of your particular tier's skill dice, so once you have that D6, you have to then go find someone to train you to get better. And you have to pick a specific specialization that you are going to go into moving forward. And you can switch paths. You can mix and match. So if you want to, you can start off as a warrior and then say, I want to become a magic user, and go try to train as a magic user. And if you succeed in undergoing that training, you will then have a D4 in both your generalist warrior skills and, generalist magic user or arcanist skills in this case. So you can do that if you want to. Or you can, it comes down to investing resources and how long do you want to stay kind of at this power level. Because you can't move to the next level until you get a D6 in something. And then you've got to, fit with a prerequisite to specialize. So if you want to spend a little bit of time dabbling, you can. Or if you want to, if you want to go through and grab a D6 in like everything, you can, with the exception of the priest path, because the priest path requires you to basically forsake everything else in service to a particular deity. But we'll get to that in a second. So these are the martial paths that you're going to be dealing with. Stalker. Stalkers are given exploration and survival skills. You are trained in skirmisher fighting styles, so you're looking at essentially one-handed and ranged weapons or shields. Um, this is kind of a prototypical ranger type character, but you can take it in multiple directions with further paths down the road. And light and medium armor is what you're working with here. Then you've got thief. Thieves are focused on stealth, climbing, and then your thief skills. So you're going to be considered trained in pickpocketing, safe cracking, lock picking, backstabbing. Light armor is going to be your bread and butter, and then you're going to be focused on a fighting style that basically allows you to maneuver around people. One of the things that I want thieves to be able to do, specifically as they get better and better, is maneuver in combat in skillful ways. So you're not just having to like disengage, hide, and then jump out at people. I want a thief to be able to, at a certain point, vault over top of someone and backstab them, or like baseball slide between their legs and cut their Achilles as they're going. That's the kind of thing that I want to encourage these kinds of players to be able to do. And also, with thieves, because in my head, the primary, like the default setting for Project Skeleton is Night Haven. I want you to be able to pull off like trick shots with a pistol or something like that as a thief. And then with warriors, you are, straight up fighter. You will have access to more weapon proficiencies than anyone else. You will have access to a wide array of fighting styles that you're able to select into, any kind of armor you want, any kind of weapon you want. And then you're also going to be very adept in battlefield expertise. So you will early on basically be able to command as a sergeant. And no matter where you go, you'll be able to command up to like 5 men at arms as a warrior. And the magic paths. These correlate directly to the magics that I laid out in my last solo stream. So those of you who are catching this without having caught any of my other streams, you're going to want to go look at the stream titled Try to Understand I'm a Magic Man, and take a look at my conceptions for types of magic. So the magic paths that I'm working with are Arcanist. This is your kind of ground level wizard where you're going to learn arcane magic, spell research, and then very rudimentary enchantment and potion craft. Elementalists will learn primal magic. This is again your proto ground level druid. You will learn your survival skills, knowledge of flora and fauna, and then herbalism and foraging and that kind of stuff. And then priests. Priests will learn divine magic. They will learn their religion, their religious lore, and they will be able to use a particular armor and particular sets of weapons depending on what kind of priest they opt to become. Basically, like with all fantasy systems, it depends on which god you worship and what that god has like laid out for his clergy to do in particular situations. So, training. Getting back to my thumbnail here. Training is going to be extremely important. It is going to be baked directly into the system. This is something those of you who are familiar with Rules Cyclopedia are probably going to recognize some of this, specifically when it comes to like the idea of weapon mastery. That's what really got me thinking about how much I like this concept. So, training will be done in real time. Your character will be unavailable for a given amount of real world time. 1-to-1 timekeeping, you all already know. That's that's kind of what we're playing with here. Is you're going to have to keep track of like real world time. At low levels, you're looking at about 1 month of training to move from your D4 to your D6. And then you could be looking at like 8 to 9 months, depending on how specialized you want to go. Um, during that training time, because, and this is something that I hear a lot when people talk about, or when I talk to people about one-to-one time, one of the first pieces of feedback I hear is, okay, I'm with you on the concept. What do we do when we forget about the character that's stuck in time jail, or how do we remember that we have this character over here? And so the way that I've come up with essentially reminding you that, hey, you've got this other character over here that is in limbo right now, is you've got three pivotal moments. They can either be done as like solo sessions between yourself and the dungeon master, or if you've got a particularly patient table, you can do them in front of everyone before the session begins. These are going to be your training montage moments. This will be your running with Yoda on your back moment. And each of these pivotal moments in training will have a skill challenge based on kind of new skills that you're acquiring. So you're going to have to make a roll to see if you pass this challenge. And this is going to be a 2 out of 3 requirement to pass training. So if you fail one roll, you're given grace. There might be exceptions to this. I can see there being particular, especially if you're talking about paladins or particular like high level wizards. I can see a situation where if you fail, you're deemed unworthy, or you fail and a demon inhabits your soul or something like that. There, I can see situations where you want no failures, but for the most part, you're looking at you get one free failure to kind of be your Yoda saying that is why you fail moment, where he raises the X-wing out of um out of the swamp. And then if you pass the other two, you succeed and you come in. So basically 2 out of 3 you have to pass for the most part. Does it have so tag 1080 here asks, does it have incremental chance to succeed like RC? Failing those harder rolls feels absolutely terrible if it doesn't help you pass in the future. That's something to consider. Where like if you succeed, like the other issue here is, you succeed in the first 2 rolls, and then the third one's kind of a whatever. I can see players doing that, and so I like the idea of every success helps you build, or maybe even like failure could help you build as kind of a learning from your mistakes type situation. um I'll have to think about that. I'll have to take that one back to the drawing board and see if that's something that I can add in and make work without creating something that's more complicated than it needs to be. And so, of course, with training, mentors become extremely important. Um, there's not XP in this game. Everything is going to be based on gold and reputation. So even monsters will not grant you XP. Monsters will grant you uh, the material cost of any components that they have on them, any bounty that is available for them, and any treasure hoard that they might be near or like keeping for themselves. So everything is going to be based on gold and reputation. Reputation is going to be, like it suggests, like the concept itself suggests. What is your reputation within this realm? How do people perceive you? That is going to determine whether or not certain people will train you. Um, so if you have a particularly checkered reputation, you might not be able to train with Sir Godfrey the Gallant, but that shady mercenary company that hangs out outside of town, yeah, they think you're all right, so you can go train with them. And so part of this is you have to find a mentor, you have to convince them to do it. That is the reputation factor is, are you the kind of person that I am willing to impart my knowledge to? And then you have to pay them, or you some of them it's you have to pay them, some of it it's some of the, like, if you're a monk and you go like train with a llama at the top of a mountain, he's not going to be like, oh yes, you must that's going to be 500 gold pieces. you know Llama's got to make a living too. That's going to be more like the money required to basically sustain you during this time where you're not adventuring and earning income. So you're going to have to pay mentors, you're going to have to convince them to do it, and your reputation's going to have to line up with their expectations. um And so what this is going to do is create situations where when you want to level up, you are going to have to go adventure and find someone to train you. The higher up you get, the more you're going to have to do to convince someone, and the harder it's going to be to find someone. So you get up to the point where you want to become a general or a king. You've got to go find yourself a kingdom, and if you want to be a general, you've got to ingratiate yourself with the nobility. If you want to be king, you have to get involved in court politics and position yourself um, within the court to be someone who could lay claim to the throne. Tag 1080. I'm convinced that faction down approach should be taken from war games. Forcing progression to come from interactions with the world is delicious. Yeah, that's what I want to do. In order to get anywhere in this game, you have to go out and interact with the world. You have to explore the world. You've got to find rumor and innuendo and secret tomes buried that speak of long forgotten orders of lost warriors and things like. You have to go. You can't just find your town and then wander around in the woods near that town forever and get better. No, you've got to go find other people. You've got to go out there and uh, see if there's anyone out there to test your mettle against. You've got to be like Goku. And I know that makes me sound like a raging weeb, but when you watch especially early Dragon Ball, the animus that basically keeps Goku going is, I need to go find someone new to fight. I need to go find someone who's better than me and then learn to be like them. And so that's kind of the animus that I want players to take on in Project Skeleton. Is you've got to go find someone better than you and learn from them. And King Yellow, that's really where the rubber's going to meet the road here, because again, right now we're in the idea phase, and I can tell you that that everything's going to work out great. I can tell you that right now because all of this exists in my head, and everything sounds good in your head, but on paper, how's this going to work out? And so I think what it's going to take is GMs, and this will be something that'll go in like a GM book, the ability to place specific mentors within the world. Because not every, there's going to be lots of different potential paths that you can take as you specialize, and not all of them are going to be available, especially in particular settings. If you're not in a pseudo Japanese setting, you're not going to be able to go be a samurai. If you're not in medieval Europe, you're not going to be able to come like a chevalier knight with uh, a horse and a mace or a lance and things like that. So a lot of it's going to be down to setting, and setting is going to inform where you can find people. And so it's also going to come down to placing rumors and rumor tables and things like that. And if players are specifically seeking out, hey, I want to find this, particular, I want to find this particular type of mentor, giving the GM the tools to be able to set that adventure into motion. And yeah, like King Yellow says here, it's going to come out to playtesting. I'm going to have to playtest this at campaign level, and I'm going to start doing that next year. Beginning in 2025, I'm going to start really kind of pushing this at campaign level, starting at the beginning and seeing how things shake out as the campaign progresses. And so moving forward from there, tier 2 specialists. This is where things start to get a little bit more, you're specializing at this point. And part of specializing is certain specialties will have prerequisite paths. Now, this is where some of these paths are going to intersect with each other, because certain professions will have multiple different avenues to enter them. So, one of the examples that I list here, both a stalker and a warrior can become a ranger. Rangers are going to have a little bit more. There's going to be more options to, ranger fighting style, and they're going to have access to greater skills. Rangers are basically going to be not just survivalists, but also like military scouts, and so they're going to have a little bit of tactical knowledge. They're going to be able to lead like guerrilla forces and things like that. I think of Rangers, the way that I'm conceiving of Rangers is like Ranger's Apprentice, if anyone has read that series. And if you haven't, I highly recommend it, especially if you have kids. It is a great series to read with kids starting around the age of probably 10. Highly recommend it. But if you are not one of those two things, you can't become a ranger. If you're not either a stalker or a warrior, you can't become a ranger. If you are not either a warrior or a priest who have distinguished themselves by being particularly pious, particularly honorable, particularly valiant, you can't become a paladin. If you're not a thief, you can't become an assassin, etc. Mentors are going to be harder to come by, but not as hard as other tiers. Training will take a little bit longer, and then this is where you're going to start to get locked out of switching paths. And particularly within the magic users, this is where time is going to become a precious commodity for you. So if you want to be a wizard who dabbles in other type of magic, it's going to take a lot longer for you. And then if you are any kind of priest class, you've taken a specific oath to not follow the other paths of magic. So you can be like the wizard that finds Jesus essentially, and go from that into becoming a cleric. But once you're a cleric, you're there. You're in that box. And so that's once you get to this point, there's still going to be some synergy that allows you to dabble a little bit. Because I want to give people that option. But once you move beyond tier 2, you're pretty much locked in where you're going to go. And so here's some examples. I had an extremely busy week, past couple weeks, so I didn't get to finish this the way that I wanted to. But these are some examples using the martial class. So as you become a specialist, you can become a knight, as a warrior, a knight, paladin, berserker, musketeer, dervish. Again, dervish is going to depend on what region you're in or what setting. A ranger, a commander, stalker. You can become a monster hunter, a ranger, a bounty hunter, an assassin. I did have either stalker or thief can become an assassin because there's again different kinds of assassins. A guerrilla fighter, etc. Thief, you can become a burglar, an assassin, a bard. That's what a bard is. Bard is going to be very specifically tied to a thief. You can become a bounty hunter, an infiltrator, a spy. And then with the magic users, as an arcanist, you can become a wizard. You'll be able to become an alchemist, an enchanter. Those are kind of your options that you're dealing with there. As a priest, you can become a paladin. You can stay a cleric, and then it'll be kind of like different specializations of cleric. Are you going to be a kind of cleric that focuses on healing people? Are you going to be a warrior cleric? Are you going to be a kind of a lore cleric, which will be essentially like a religious iteration of the bard, where you are specifically the keeper of the holy records, that kind of stuff. An evangelist cleric is another one that I wanted to play with, where if you are a cleric with a particularly high aptitude and personality, your job is basically to go out there and convert people, and you'll be able to do miracles and create wondrous signs and things like that. That's something that I wanted to play around with too. And then as a primal magic user, you can be a druid, you can be a monk. This is where becoming a monk will come in. So you'll start to focus on empty hand martial arts. Monks will also be able to come from the cast of warriors as well. So you'll be able to slide on in there and have a little bit of synergy between primal magic and warriors. You'll also be able to become an herbalist, a shaman. That's all within the primal magic user ethos. And then from there, it's going to get more specific. So once you start to master your field, you're going to earn certain ranks. So like a commander will become a marshal, and then a general. A knight will become a lord or baron, that kind of thing. A spy for a thief will become a spy master. And so again, you're funneling. You're funneling into narrower and narrower categories where you become better and better at specific things. And some of these things are going to have synergy with each other, and some of these things are going to lock each other out. Question here about Nighthaven. Slightly off topic, but seeing what kind of place Nighthaven is, did you read The Canting Crew by Gygax? Could you give you some ideas if you didn't, especially with the thief classes? I did not. When I'm thinking of thieves, what comes to mind? Well, there's Fafhrd the Grey Mouser. but also thieves world is something that comes to mind. um my concept of the thief is you are going to end up going in one of a couple different directions. So you start off, as a pickpocket. You can join the side of the law and become a bounty hunter, and then like move into becoming a thief catcher and running a city police, type situation. You can become a burglar and then a master burglar, and essentially turn yourself into like, the gentleman thief archetype, where your name is essentially like, your nickname is known widely, and you supernatural powers are attributed to you because of your thiefly prowess. Then there's going to be like the kingpin type role where you are essentially becoming a mob boss, and then there's the spy avenue where you are going to become part of a ruler's spy network, and you're going to become like, uh, Thufir Hawat is who comes to mind in that particular iteration. So Thufir from Dune, uh, essentially leading up the intelligence department for a kingdom. And then bards, you'll eventually become like a lore master, a court lore master, up through there. Jonathan Frost, a mercenary, is just one of these other specializations for cash. Pretty much. With a mercenary, and I might specifically create a mercenary path. Um, I do see this as falling under commander, where if you start to pick like the commander path, you can opt to either join a uh, like join an existing kingdom, or you can kind of like start your own PMC, start your own Band of the Hawk. But yeah, like as a mercenary, you can look at this list here and see like any of these could be mercenaries. Mercenary is kind of it would be a category of these things is how I think about it. Instead of being a knight for a particular kingdom, you're essentially like a knight for yourself, or a knight. I don't know if that's. I think knight. No, knight. That's not what a knight errant is. Never mind. I'm rambling now. But yeah, you can. Basically, mercenary is just: do you work for someone else, or do you work for yourself? Between you and me, I hate bards with every fiber of my being. This is the thing. I want to make bards interesting. And Malachi again brings up a good point here that these Castles and Crusades is a great bard class. You are, as a bard in Castles and Crusades, you're basically a thief who's very good at persuasion using magic, or using music. So I don't like bards being able to use magic, because at a certain point in 3E and 5E, you're looking at essentially being like a minor wizard as a bard. And so, if you use magical secrets correctly, you end up being able to both charm people and cast fireball, and that's ridiculous. But the idea of a bard that I want is, uh, I think of the guy from the Thomas Jane Punisher movie, the one assassin who shows up in a restaurant and plays a song for Frank Castle and then tries to kill him. That's what I think of when I think of bards. Or Antonio Banderas from Desperado. That's what I want a bard to be. Or Alan Adale as well. You're traveling with a group of important people, and you are writing their story. And this is going to be part of the reputation currency. If you have a bard with you, you essentially have a propaganda minister with you. And so you can make your tales sound grander than they actually were, or you can make your opponents sound like absolute buffoons. And if your bard is good at their job, they're going to be able to spread your reputation. And so that's going to be one of the ways that you can make use of group reputation or individual reputation as a currency. If you have a bard who is with you and is willing to work with you, then they're going to be able to make you sound really, really good, or make your opponent sound really, really bad, and kind of weaponize that side of things. And then Jonathan Frost also brings up Dark Sun bards, which, assassins with musical instruments. And that's cool too. I want that to be an option as well. So yeah, like I'm trying to make the bard more than just the horny guy with the lute. Or the horny guy with the lute who can also cast magic, because that's just cringe at this point. Like, we've all dealt with that player. The bards from Robin's Retinue is what happened when you upset the bard player at the table. That's when you get Sir Robin's bards. So yeah, that's what I'm working with right now. And again, as you guys have pointed out, this is all blue skying. This is all my concepts and my starting point. This is the ethos that I'm working in, though. And so now it's going to be a matter of taking this to the table and seeing if it withstands contact with the players. I know that certain aspects of this are going to fall apart and are going to fail. It's just a matter of what can I salvage, what actually works, what should I lean into. And so this is the sandbox that I'm playing in, essentially. This is what I want my game to be. And so at this, what I hope this creates is natural tiers of play where you are moving towards really kind of like large scale domain play, where you are naturally being filtered towards kingdom level play. And the skills are going to be refined to the point where you are now able to act as a patron or act within the context of a larger goings on beyond just adventuring around. So that's what I'm working with here, and I hope I'm able to succeed with that. I will keep you guys updated on where that goes, how that plays out. But I'm pretty optimistic about this. I think this is an idea that incorporates a lot of good ideas and leaves aside some things that people get irritated with in gaming. And so I'm hoping that this just, that this ends up being successful. And that's going to come down to playtesting. So that's really where we'll leave it for tonight. I'm excited about this. I hope you guys enjoyed hearing me talk about it. And I hope that as this idea continues to be refined, especially once it comes up against the fire and the hammers of the players, they will be able to help me really just kind of bring out the gold in this idea. So that's what I've got for tonight. Next week, I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm going to reach out and see if I can bring someone on. There's one of my friends has a project going on right now. I actually want to tell everyone about this. because this is a really cool sounding project, and of, of course now I can't even let's see. Let's see if I can actually bring this up. That's not coming up. Greg Lambert from Akaris Adventures has a kaiju game out right now, and so I'd like to try to bring him on. I'm going to talk to him after the stream's over and see if he's available to come on and talk about his kaiju game. But uh, yeah, that's something that you guys should all check out. If I can find the link to the Kickstarter that's live now, I will put it up in chat afterwards. But that's something I'll be looking at. Character creation is also something I'll come back and talk about a little bit. So yeah, that's where we're at right now. Until next time, though, whether you rolled a 1 or a 20, I'm so glad that you rolled your bones with me, Ryan Howard. Oh, before I go, Titans of Fallen Earth. That's what it's called. Let me pull this up real quick so I can share it with you guys. Now that I have it, I can look it up. There we go. Titans of Fallen Earth. Let me go ahead and present this so you guys can see. Titans of Fallen Earth has 25 days left to go on Kickstarter. It is almost funded. Let's go ahead and see if we can bring this over the hump tonight. So this is Greg Lambert, who has created a lot of great games. One of the real proponents of traditional fantasy out there in the gaming world. He has created this game, Titans of Fallen Earth, which is a kaiju versus mech game. And I'm going to reach out to Greg and see if I can bring him on to talk about this, because this is really cool. This is people that I have had on my show, friends of mine doing cool things. This is what I like to see. And so, I'll reach out to Greg and see if I can bring him on to talk about this. If he's not available, I will bring him on at some point before this campaign is over. And then, oh yeah, let me drop a link in here for you guys. God, it's almost like I'm bad at this. All right, so the link is there in chat for you guys to see. But yeah, again, cool people doing cool things. So you guys should all check that out. And until next time, whether you rolled a 1 or a 20, I'm so glad that you rolled your bones with me, Ryan Howard, and I will see you guys on the other side. Have a good night.